Alright, so I vacuumed everything out, cleaned it all up. It's just going to make it easier to move on. Just stop now and then, clean things up, and you'll feel better about how things might be looking, even if they look grim at the time. I'm going to pull these seat belts. I don't know why I still have the seat belts in here, honestly. I don't even have a back seat for this car, so if you have a line on a back seat, let me know. So far, I have only found internet scams regarding seats for these cars, for the most part, at least for back seats. So I'm going to pull these sills and the seat belts, and then we'll come back. All right, let's do a quick update before I move on. So I got the seat belts out. I vacuumed out the whole car. It's like so much better just getting all that junk out. I cut more of the floor up. I cut this up higher. It still comes this way and then down. I'm just showing that in case the camera doesn't pick it up. And I cut more out so that I could get more into this brace. And I've been hitting it with the wire wheel just to kind of get all the surface rust cleaned off, and then we'll shoot some rust converter in there. I did the same thing in between these two braces here. I've been hitting them with the wire wheel and along this section here. Some of this will still probably be cut out, but I'm cleaning that up, and I'll shoot that because I know up here will stay, so shoot that with some converter. And then the other thing I think I'll do before I bring you back again is I'm going to take and cut more of this floor up, because if you can see that this is kind of where it curves down, and we want to get this again down on the vertical plane more so that when we start laying in the floor to fit it, it can sit down on these braces and that curve won't be fighting the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that across there now, and then I'll bring you back. And look, I actually have the shop door open today. It's beginning of April, and finally a little bit of warmth. So that's a good day. All right, so I'll do that. I'll keep cleaning those up. I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to spray on the rust areas. All right, so a quick review of where I am. I got that part of the floor cut off, and I carefully cut it along this edge right here, and then peeled that off. There was a spot weld here. I still need to grind that off. And then I actually cut it right at a spot weld here, but that's fine. So I got that peeled off. We're not worried about this yet because we'll get there. So I hit all this with the wire wheel best I could, various sizes of wire wheels, and got in as much as I could to all these areas. And then I vacuumed everything off, and then I took an air hose and just blew it off so there's no dust or anything. So now I'm going to apply some rust treatment stuff. I used this on the other side. You apply this with a brush, and it seemed to work really well. But this time I'm going to try the spray because I had both. And the reason I'm going to do the spray is because I think I can get it up under here better if I lay on the floor, and then I can kind of shoot all that stuff up in there. So I'm going to try the spray to see how it works. So I'm just going to follow the directions on the can, hit all these areas that I hit with the wire wheel. And it's the end of the night, so then we'll come back tomorrow, see how everything looks, and we'll do a review. And then we'll move on. So see you tomorrow. All right, quick update before I go to bed. So the can, this piece of shit can, said to spray this 2 to 3 coats lightly. So I did the first coat lightly, and it seemed to work out okay. Didn't spray very well, not like you'd expect an aerosol to spray. And then I went to go spray the second coat. You're supposed to wait 2 to 3 minutes between coats. Tried to go and spray the second coat, and it wouldn't spray. I don't know if just that shitty nozzle kept clogging up or what the deal was, but I kept having to mess with it, and I finally got some more kind of sprayed on, and then I tried to kind of do a third coat. I think I got it covered, so I guess we'll just wait and see. But I learned my lesson. I won't use the aerosol again. You can see it's starting to turn black. That's what it's supposed to do. But from now on, I'll be brushing this stuff on. So we'll come back tomorrow, see how it looks. All right, so it's the next day, and I did end up brushing another coat on with a brush. Looks like I might have got it a little thin here. Might hit that again. I did use the brush and brushed some on that from the liquid, from the jar with the liquid, because that spray just didn't seem very good at all. It was so thin, and anyway, it seemed to come out pretty good. Everywhere it's really black like that, you can see is where it's, you know, converting rust or whatever it's doing. All right, so I think it's time to move on, and I think, unfortunately, it is time to talk about the elephant in the room, which is get you under here. The inner rocker. I mean, it's gone here. The outer rocker, that's the outer rocker. They sandwiched together. It doesn't look great either. I think it's solid up on top. Like up in here, that is all solid. It's just down here lower where the problem is. I think what I'm going to do, it's definitely much worse in the back than it is up here in the front. Kind of can see it there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it. I'm just going to clean it up, wire brushes, and maybe even I might even pull out a flap disc and just clean it up best I can, and then get a better look at actually what's going on here. So I'll do some cleaning up of that, and then I'll come back. All right, so we're looking towards the front of the car right now. The floor, or excuse me, not the floor, the rocker doesn't look so bad here. These things you're seeing here, that's the old plug welds from the floor that I pulled out. So I still need to clean those up more. But it seems pretty solid. All along here seems pretty solid. That area is pretty solid. And then we get back here towards the back of the car. And shit. So this is a bummer because the other side, the rocker was, I mean, there wasn't even hardly surface rust on it. So I was kind of surprised to see that this one was so much worse. I don't know, maybe that's a common thing with Novas. But so what I'm thinking is, I'm solid up here. Hopefully you can see where I'm at. I'm solid up here. At least it feels solid. It could be rotting from the inside. Who knows? What I'm thinking of doing is cutting. It seems to be pretty solid. You can't probably see with the lighting, but it's pretty solid from this point back. So I'm thinking of cutting here and along here, and then coming down here somewhere and just pulling this out, because this piece here is flat. So if I get that out of there, one thing I can do is I can at least get in there and take a peek and assess how bad it is. But if I can, I mean, I can just weld another piece of steel on here down flat to create the pinch weld that goes to the inner rocker. Now the inner rocker doesn't look great either, or the outer, excuse me, the outer rocker doesn't look great either. But I think we need to cut it open just to see what we have actually going on anyway. So I'm going to get set up and do that. I'll probably let you watch part of that. All right, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to use the cutoff wheel on this because it's a little less aggressive than the electric grinder, because I don't really know what's behind this. I know there's some bracing, but I have no idea where it is. So I just have a little bit better control on it with this. So I'll cut it easy. I don't know if I'll block your view, but whoops. It's not the easiest thing to get into here. Well, let's see if we can get this opened up now. hoping that I got it all cut through. I think I did. I have no idea what to expect. I've never done anything like this before. It's pretty thick steel used on this. It's much softer down here, of course. Well, I see a lot of leaves and shit in there. I don't want to go prying on this too much because I don't want to totally ruin this flange from the outer rocker. So I might work a little bit on this off camera. Maybe I'll see about drilling out some of those plug welds. I don't know. Let's think about it for a second, and then I'll let you know what we decide. But it doesn't look great in there. So I'll show you guys real quick. You can see down in here. See there's a bunch of leaves and stuff down in there. That's why I was a little bit worried about starting a fire. But this side down here will let go a little bit easier because it's thinner. But again, I don't want to just start prying on this and bend that flange too much. So what I might do is just grind off a bunch of this inner rocker to make it thinner. I thought about taking the air chisel down through there, but I think I'll mangle the other panel. And I don't want to do that yet in case I need it for reference. So I might just grind this thinner and then start working on prying it out of there. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is where it's let go here already, I'm just going to cut this off so we have two separate pieces. And then I'm going to grind this side down a bit, just the inner rocker, not the outer, just to make this a lot thinner. And I'm just going to use a 36 grit disc for that. So let's do that real quick. And I think just by making it thinner, I think maybe I can just get in there with the air chisel after that and bust it out. This 36 grit disc is going to move a lot of material fast. Okay, this is thin. I really don't want to hit this with the air hammer at the moment. And there's still a piece of the floor still on here too. So I think I'll grind that off. I'll get this off and then I'll bring you back. Look at all that crap that's coming out of there already. What a shame. Alright guys, so here's what I decided to do. So this is the outer rocker. This is the piece I cut out of the inner rocker that was rotted all back up in here. The inner rocker, so the piece comes down here, feels solid all the way up to the front. It needs a little cleanup. It's got a little bit of surface rust, but not bad. So I'm going to make a piece to put back in here now. But I'm not going to weld it to that outer rocker section on the bottom. I'm going to weld it up across here and across the ends. You can see, if you look through there, you can see daylight. That's the outer rocker. So I'm gonna weld back together the inner rocker because it's all, I can feel up in here. There's not even surface rust on it. But we're gonna have to replace this outer rocker, or at least a big portion of it. So I'm gonna fix the inner, put it back together so that we can continue on with the floor, because I want to put the floor in here and get it welded in before pulling that outer rocker off, because I don't want to compromise the structure of the car. It's a unibody car, and having the floor in will help stabilize it, I think. So I'm going to make a piece for that now and get that put in, but not welded here. And then once we pull this off, we'll be able to see the entirety of the inner rocker, and we can clean it all up and treat it and everything. And if we do find, more serious rot, we can cut it out at that time. But for now, I think that's going to be the plan, because we're pretty solid going that way as well. So we'll make that now. Here's just some of the stuff I got out of that hole in the rocker. And this is one of those big dust pans. It's not one of those little wimpy kitchen ones. So I blew it out best I could, vacuumed it out best I could. A lot of debris in the vacuum. But yeah, the outer rockers are toast. So I'll order some of those, I think. Meanwhile, we'll go back to the repairing that inner rocker and doing the floor. All right, I just made a cardboard template. The piece is going to go up in here. And we'll go trace that out on a piece of sheet metal. Cut it out, weld it in. Yeah, nothing's on fire. I left it a little long on the bottom because we may have to shape this up a little bit, which will shorten the thing. So I cut it just a little bit long on the bottom. And I'm getting ready to fit my piece in, but I'm gonna cut this section out right here from like here, just up across and down, because it's so corroded and bumpy and everything. I don't think I'll get the other piece to lay down flat properly if I don't just get that out of there. We already know we're replacing it, so I'm gonna cut that out. All right, guys, let me show you what I have going on here. So I've cut the old inner rocker up here. This is cut to fit right through here. It's cut to fit, and also right here it's cut to fit. So it's flush here and flush here on the bottom. So I'm going to tack weld here and here. Now up top here, it's overlapping. Because we are going to be replacing the outer rocker, I'm going to do a cut and butt here. So I'm going to tack weld this piece to this piece in spots, and then we'll come back through and cut those spots out, and then push this in flush, and then tack them. Normally you wouldn't do this because you wouldn't be able to get the metal out off the back side, but since we're going to be cutting into the outer rocker, we will be able to. So I'm going to get the welder set up, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. All right, we'll tack these two lower corners because they're already flush, and then we'll tack the top along the edge. Okay. You know what I didn't do? I didn't clean all the paint and all that off of this top section here. That was dumb. That's why you saw me struggle a little bit. Got ahead of myself a little bit. Oh well. We'll make it work. Okay, so you can see, hopefully you can see, this is flush down here. Yeah, flush down here. Cut to fit all the way up, but we're overlapped up here. And we just tack those on. Now what we're going to do is take a zip blade and we're going to just cut through the welds that we created right along this seam. We do it at an angle so that we have less gap left over. If we did it this way, we'd create a bigger gap. We'd create at least the gap the size of the cutter. But if we go at an angle here, we'll create a less gap. And then we'll just start cutting it, and then we'll hold it in and tack it, and then they'll be flush together. And we'll do that across there till it's done. Okay, so doing that, cutting that, pushing it in with the screwdriver flush with the two. It's made these two flush. Now I'm going to do that all the way across here. Just going to keep cutting down like I was doing at an angle, pushing it in and tacking it in. Okay, I'm going to finish doing this off camera, and then we'll come back. Okay, we got the whole thing burned in, flush. So it's flush all the way around. It's all flush. So now we're going to go back and just start tacking in between the welds that are already there. So let's do that now. Do a little, skip a little, do a little, skip a little. Keep the heat from warping things too badly. So we'll finish this off and then we'll come back. Okay, got it all welded up. Didn't look fantastic. I really didn't get myself in a comfortable position to weld in, so I had wandered off a couple times, and it was a little globby, but oh well. I'm gonna use a 36 grit disc. Start sanding this off. I'm gonna concentrate really hard on staying on top of these welds, because we don't want to make anything thinner than it already is. So I'm going to use this to get the bulk of it off, and I'll probably switch to something a little less aggressive to kind of finish it off. And then we'll probably have a few pinholes and stuff we'll have to address afterwards. All right, we've got the inner rocker piece all welded up. It looks a little rough with this lighting, but I assure you it's solid. It's The camera went out of focus, but it's I just sanded it with like 36 grit, so it's kind of a rough sanding at the moment, but it's good and solid now. So now we can carry on with putting the floor in it. So let's move on. Okay, now that we got that rocker sturdied up, let's turn our attention back to the floor. So that toe board over there was rotted all the way up, and it was a pain. This one, I think I'm a little luckier. I think all this is solid up here, so I think the really bad stuff ends right in here somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go underneath the car, make sure I'm not going to cut through anything, and then we'll start cutting this out a bit. We'll be a little careful. The floor we're putting in comes along this edge right here and goes straight up and ends right about here somewhere and then comes across. I don't know that we're going to use it because I did actually buy a toe board already, but we're not going to probably use it all. So I'm going to take this off, which is just 2 bolts, and then we'll start nibbling away at this. So we'll have to be careful because the torque box is under here, and I think it's right here and right about here. And then the toe board is spot welded to it. So we'll just start nibbling away at all that. So I'll be right back. Well, this was kind of a bummer when I took this down from up here. It just fell apart in half. That's a bummer. But, well. So there is a little bit of surface rust on everything up here. So, yeah, we'll grind all that down and treat it or something. But the toe board itself, though, is not bad up here. So let's start cutting it out. All right, I'm going to cut up here. I'm going to go a little way, cut them across here, come down, get the bulk of this out. Some of you pros might say, quit pussyfooting around and just get that all cut out of there. But I'm new at this. And this video is kind of for people that are new at this. So we're going to carefully cut out, see what's behind everything. I mean, I kind of have an idea. I think I might have told you the torque box is back there. I don't think it is, but I do think it's right in here somewhere. So when you see me switch grinders, it's because I want a little better control, and I don't want so much aggression that I cut through something I shouldn't. So that's why I will eventually probably switch grinders. And I'm sorry if I blocked your view on some of this. Okay, now we'll cut it across so we can kind of see what's underneath everything. Again, I think right in here, we're spot welded onto the torque box. Okay, I think I'm being hung up by a spot weld right in here. So, give me a second to grab some tools. I'll be right back. Okay, so yes, there's plug welds, not spot welds, coming down through here. You can kind of see one here. It's just so rotted, all this area, that it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. So you can see I can lift this out a little bit. So it's plug welded right here. That's the only thing that's holding all this on. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to cut along here to loosen this up. And then I'll probably cut down here to get this out of the way. And then we'll have a piece that's just left over on that torque box. And you'll get to see it all when I open it up. So I'm going to just cut those off camera right now because you don't need to keep watching me cut stuff. All right, guys, I changed my mind. I am going to show you this because I had an epiphany while I was starting to cut this out, in that my videos are made for beginners because I'm basically a beginner too. So pros aren't going to stick with these videos of mine probably because they already know this stuff and they're going to go, ah, it's a waste of time. So this is for beginners. And I started cutting this out. I told you I was going to cut here. I did that. And I started cutting here, and then the whole thing just kind of fell apart. So out it comes. Now we're going to cut up here because we're staying on the outside of this torque box. So now let's cut that real quick. And then you'll start to see a picture of what this, how this whole thing works and why I'm doing it this way, cutting out a little at a time so we can kind of get a scope of what's happening in here. So let's cut this. Okay, now, hopefully you can see. I think we'll bring the camera in so you can see a little better. Sorry about the movement. So, now you can see this torque box. There's still some floor left on this. We'll get that in a second. The toe board was plug welded to that. See that plug weld's holding this whole thing on right now? And then it's plug welded up, continuing up for I don't know exactly how far, but we'll find out because we're going to get there. So now we'll get that off of there. And then we'll get some of that floor off there. I want to try to keep this intact for the moment, and I'll explain why in a minute. We're going to use this to take some measurements. So let me get set up for the next step. All right, well actually I thought I was going to use the air hammer here, but I'm not because it's so weak. I'm just going to peel this off like so. I just broke that plug weld. That was right there. That's factory plug weld. And now we're getting down to the basics of this thing. So let's start peeling off the old floor. Careful, I haven't had a tetanus shot in a while. Let's start peeling off this old floor, and then we'll continue cutting up around the rotted areas. All right, guys, I decided since I'm making this video pretty much for people that haven't done this before, I'm going to stop and explain something real quick that would have definitely helped me. I did the other side of my car already, and it was actually worse than this side. But I thought it would help if I explained kind of what we're looking at. So this junk here on top, that's old part of the floor that came down and laid on here. And I didn't take it off because if I try to bust it off, I'm going to break this up too, which is fine. But I want to keep this intact for a little bit, which I'll explain later. So what this is some call it a torque box. It's also called a body mount, and it's this piece right here, which I've already light on here, right? So this is what we're looking at. So you can see these notches here. You can see that's what these are, and there's another notch underneath this old floor. So look here, this is this, and that's what this part of the floor was plug welded to. Now I can also tell by looking at this now that the floor over here, it's not resting on this, as I think I might have mentioned earlier. I just had forgot. It's been a while since I did the other side. So I can actually just cut this out and not worry about cutting into any of this. I also know there's nothing under here, so I can cut this out more. And what I want to do is take this all the way up to the top of the rust. And I'm sorry about the shadows, the brake pedal shadows in the way. There. So I want to cut up and get out of the worst parts of this. Okay. And then we'll deal with this. So this is first. And then the toe board comes down and it's mounted. Now, the original, the toe board came to here. And it was all one piece across the top. Now I patched in a toe board over there, and I'm also going to patch in a toe board over here, and then we're going to keep the center, the original, because it's in good shape. So here's the toe board, which I also purchased. Now, purchasing this stuff ahead of time is a huge help because you can actually sort of see how things fit together and what you're cutting. And let's keep in mind also, just because you bought a whole patch panel doesn't mean that you have to or even should use all of it. And we're not going to use all of this. We're going to end up cutting this up and just using what we need of it. But we have to determine what we need. So, but I wanted to show you, because I know I've watched videos before I did this. I watched a few videos and I couldn't tell what the heck was going on under here. Most guys were kind of skipping it. So that's what's going on. And so now I'm going to go ahead and cut more of this floor out. I'm going to just mark it up, get it where we're getting up to clean metal. And then we'll start figuring out what we're going to do with this. Okay, so I'll be back. That's when it gets closer to a spot where we have good metal. And we'll cut that out now. Now I'm going to make a slice here and here and cut across and use the air hammer to bust that off of there. You know, I didn't have to contend with these pedals when I did the other side. I wasn't really taking that into consideration. Alright, I think I'm going to do this off camera, the rest of this, because I want to contort myself a little bit to get up in there, and I'm going to block the view anyway. Alright guys, so I got this all cut loose. The only thing that's holding it in is the plug welds that are here. So I just drew a couple lines. I'm going to cut that up there like that, and then we'll come back. All right. So got those two pieces cut out of there. Let's see if I can get this in camera for you. So if you look close, you can see this car was rotting from the inside out. Because the back sides, this might look bad, but actually what you're looking at is undercoating. So you can see there how it's still green. This is the area that I took the undercoating off before I started cutting everything. And you can see this, there's some surface rust on it, but as from the inside out that these cars rot. So now I've got this last piece left on here. And I'm just going to use the air hammer because that metal still seems like it's pretty decent on the mount, not the floor. So it'll be stronger. This will be stronger than the floor piece, so I should be able to just pop this out of here without doing any damage to this. All right, I'm gonna bring the camera in and give you a closer look. Okay. So you can see that when I made that first cut earlier, I did cut through the brace, which I was trying to be careful not to do. Not only did I cut through it, I cut deep through it. But no big deal. If we're going to save this, I'll just weld that up. So you can see I just got a little bit of plug weld stuff here to clean up. But so I'm going to do a little bit of assessing now, and then we'll decide what to do next. Hopefully all this is making sense to you. All right, guys, I want to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this off camera because there's no sense in you watching me do it. I am going to... we already know this is pretty thin and bad, so this is going to end up getting cut out of here. What I'm going to do, I think I'm going to take this cut here a little bit higher because I don't like the fact that I ended up right at the top of that thing. It's kind of a weird spot, so I'm going to take that up another ½ inch or so. So I'll cut that back so next time you see this, it'll be up a little bit different there. And then I'm going to hit a bunch of this. I'm going to wire wheel this and just do some general cleaning. Clean up these rails, the frame rails, or the subframe. You can see all the rot down in here. So I'm just going to clean it all up, and then I'll come back and we can actually dissect what's going on and how we're going to repair it. So I'll be back once we get some cleaning done. The floor's a mess. I mean, everything's kind of a mess. So I'll be back after that. All right, I've just decided to bring you back for a quick update. So you can see how much further I cut the floor up. I wanted to get all this exposed so that I could clean it up and treat it. Back in here is a bit rusty. I know you can't see it yet, but you will see it because we're going to cut more of the floor out over here. Sorry. We're going to cut more of the floor out over here. And that's what I did on the other side too. I ended up having to do the same thing. So on the other side, I took that toe board. I didn't plug weld the toe board into the inner cowl. I just cut it right on the edge and then butt welded it up there. You're looking at seam sealer, that's why it looks so funky. But I'm gonna have to do the same thing here, which means this panel's gonna have to come off, which is fine because I was gonna take them off and either paint them or replace them anyway. So, but to get this off, you got to take the emergency brake deal off. I want to show you real quick if I can. It's actually not that hard to take off, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. So back up in there. I can't really get the camera to focus on it, but there's two bolts that go through the firewall. And then there's one up here. It's the bigger one of the two that you're looking at. That has to come off, and then the two that are down there on the firewall get taken off from inside, or under the hood, I should say. down here. Right there. See those two nuts have to come off. I'm hoping that they're captive on the other end so that it doesn't spin, because otherwise that's going to be a huge pain in the ass. But I'm thinking they must be. There's no way you could do it otherwise. So I'm going to pull the emergency brake cable out. I'm not sure, but I might have to slacken the cable here. That's the emergency brake cable, which comes up through here. But it looks like once I get the bracket off, I can probably just slide the cable out of the mechanism. But you know what? That could use some cleaning up anyway. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to get that out, this panel out, and then we'll come back. All right, guys. So here's the pedal down. Still connected to the emergency brake cable. It's sat up. Well, it's sat up in there. But here's what we've got to do now. So this is the wire that was attached to the switch here, and the other side had a clip on it that was attached up there. You'll be able to see it when you take yours off. Now to get the cable out, there's a clip right here. I already lifted this little tab up with a screwdriver to pull it off. I don't know if I can do it one-handed or not. There. So there's the little tab, and that just blocks the emergency brake cable from coming out. Now I did not slacken that cable before I did this, but I'm definitely going to have to slacken it to put it back together. So you might just want to do that up front. But now you got your whole assembly here. I'm going to put that little clip I just took back on, put it back on so I don't lose it or forget how it goes. That's part of the reason I'm making this video right here, so that I can figure out how to put it back together. Now we can also clean this thing all up. So anyway, I'll be back. Alright guys, so you can see I got the kick panel out and the emergency brake off. Now we're going to cut this back a little bit further. We'll cut it above this tab here, so we'll cut, you know, like right in along here. Then we'll cut up in here, and we'll leave, you know, a ½ inch or so of space to this portion here. And then I'll probably cut it up and then just bring it across to here and cut the rest of this part out up here as well. You guys have seen me cut enough times, so I'm just going to cut that so we can get a better view of what's going on behind that piece, and then we'll come back. Alright, so we cut another section out of the toe board like we talked about. That was this here. So that's out of there. Actually looks a lot better back there than I was expecting. There is a couple holes drilled here, and I'm not sure why. I'll have to get into the car and look. I'm not sure if there was something there at one point or what, but so this is actually in better shape than I was expecting. There's some surface rust and some pitting, but it's still pretty thick metal. However, we do have a ton of rot here. So what we're going to do for sure is, I think right now I'm going to cut this straight up here and across and off. Get rid of that. Now what I did do, it's out of here. I did measure, see, I did measure from this point down here and this point down to here, because there's a little step here. And I just wrote down what those measurements were so that I would have a reference when I start trying to fit in the new piece, because we have this whole piece, but we're just going to cut off the new piece and use what we need out of it. So now I'll cut this out, and I'll probably hit a bunch of this up also with a wire wheel on the drill, get a lot of that surface rust off there and kind of get a better look at what's going on there. So let me do some of that and I'll be back. Okay, so I kind of showed you what we're going to cut out. I'm just going to mark this a little bit. And luckily this piece is so much better than I thought it was. We'll just come up through here somewhere. So this area here is where it's really rotted, and again, it would, if it wasn't gone, it would come down to there. So let's just cut that out. I'd be careful not to go too deep so I don't hit the emergency brake cable. Okay. Well, I didn't hit anything important. I didn't cut it as good as I was quite hoping, but it'll be okay. So, I do a little bit of cleaning up and pondering, and then we'll come back and decide what's next. Alright guys, so we got this piece of the body mount cut off. Now what I'm going to do is clean up this subframe. I'm going to take the two clamps that are holding this brake line on so I can spread it apart a little bit, and I'll get under here and scrape away all the undercoating and stuff that's on here. Get that cleaned up. We'll clean up the top of them. We'll clean up the cross member best we can. Also, I'm going to clean behind this. It's got undercoating on it. We got to get all that cleaned up so that when we weld back into that, it doesn't catch on fire. The other thing we're going to do, this bolt here and that bolt right there, those are the body mount bolts. As you can see, the body mount bushings are toast. So I'm going to squirt those, both of those, while I have access, with a little bit of PB Blaster, penetrating oil, just so it'll work its way down into those threads, so that when it comes time to remove those to replace the bushings, they'll hopefully come out with less struggle. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is right here, that is the original column shift linkage, automatic column shift linkage that came with this car. I'm not currently using it because I have this beautiful B&M shifter that is really not meant for this car, but it's working. Eventually this will be a 4-speed car, so I don't need that linkage. If anybody wants it, let me know. If you pay for shipping, I'll just send it to you. And when we come back, we got to get the rest of this floor, toe board, and body mount that all comes down and meets here onto the inner rocker. We gotta get all that off. So once we get everything cleaned up, we'll come back and work on that. So I'll see you in a minute. All right, I thought I'd just show you guys real quick what I'm doing here. All I'm doing is using I degreased it first. I just shot some brake clean on some of it, kind of wiped it off. And then I'm just using a wire brush on a drill. And you can see that dust coming off in there. So I'll get as much of the surface rust off as I can. And also, I hit this brake line with it as well. I just came through here and just cleaned it up that way. That's what it looked like before. You can see how nice it's cleaning up. Anyway, I'm going to keep doing that.